Welcome to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. If you would like to stay in the loop of our next opportunity, please email ppbarakoff@hotmail.com. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now to welcome your host, Peter Barakoff.
Hi, welcome to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast, from blueprints to skylines, where we interview the go-getters in the industry. I am your host, Peter Barakoff. Today's guest is Alex Hack, principal and real estate developer. Today, we're going to put her in the hot seat. Thanks for coming on, Alex. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Peter. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. Tell everybody a little about yourself, your background, get the whole information on you.
Sure, yeah. So, like Peter mentioned, my name is Alex or Alexandra Hack. I'm a mixed-use developer based in the Southern California region. I've been in the commercial real estate industry and development industry for about 10 years on both East Coast markets and in local Southern California-based markets as well. I really got my development start in New York City. I moved to New York for a graduate program in real estate finance about, it's been, maybe 10 years ago now. Okay. So I worked for a very prolific developer in New York City for a number of years before switching to the institutional side. Worked at AIG for about 4 years, did some troubled debt restructuring, and also some investment management, commercial mortgage lending, before leaving to join my two partners that I'm with currently and developing mixed-use projects from the ground up.
Okay, wow. So New York, what brought you back here to Southern California?
Great question. I am from LA, so it's always been my passion. I even included this in my statement of purpose when I applied to graduate schools. To really make the built environment of Los Angeles better, more walkable. We have so many different offerings and amenities here. I really just wanted to add to that and create new things that really added to that overall cultural experience of being in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I do like here in LA. I love the weather, and that's a big part of my life.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your first development ever, maybe your own, not working for someone else or in New York. How did it come to fruition? Walk us through that from beginning to,
Sure, yeah. So I worked for Bruce Eichner, who's a very prolific developer in New York City, for those of you who are familiar with the kind of New York development scene. He built the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. And I worked on his big project after the Cosmopolitan, which is now called Madison Square Park Tower, colloquially referred to it as 22nd Street. It is on 22nd Street in New York. But as a young analyst, there really was just sort of an opportunity within it was really sort of structured as it's a family office, really. So it's a very flat organization. It's really, you're just reporting to Bruce, and everyone else has their own little fiefdom. So there came about an opportunity to really step up on 22nd Street when we were sort of in the still pre-development stages. And so I really doubled down on that effort. So, and now today we have a completed 69-story residential condo building in the Flatiron district of Manhattan. So that might be the biggest deal I will ever work on in my entire career. Is about a $500 million deal, but certainly a great project to get my feet wet.
Nice. Today, what are you guys working on today with you and your partners?
Sure, yeah. So I'm sure many of your listeners, perhaps yourself as well, have heard of the Builder's Remedy. And so I am one of, my development project is the Builder's Remedy development project in the city of La Cañada Flintridge, which is about 10 miles north of downtown Los Angeles, just west of Pasadena. And it really has been making the headlines for about the past year and a quarter, maybe, because of our huge kind of lawsuit, and most recently our big win against the city of La Cañada Flintridge. And just to kind of, I think, maybe fill people in about what the Builder's Remedy is for those who are unaware. The Builder's Remedy is an entitlements strategy or route rather, that essentially says that for, and this is in the sort of state law. So state law in California stipulates that for cities or jurisdictions that have not appropriately planned for their fair share of housing by a certain deadline, become subject to what's called the builder's remedy. The builder's remedy essentially is that a developer can come in and propose whatever they want on a site, regardless of the underlying zoning, the development standards, design guidelines, just so long as that development proposal contains at least 2/3 residential and 20% of the residential has to be an affordable component. Other than that, you, under state law, the city has to approve your project. So this is really up until, our case, a couple of others in Southern California, we were really kind of the guinea pigs. Now they're up and down the state. The Bay Area has, several hundred sort of now. But, we were among the first handful to really set the precedent. And our most recent win is we were the first project to win a trial court ruling against the city, saying that the city should approve our project. So, we were denied, unfortunately, at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think most notably as well, Governor Newsom, the state of California, and the Attorney General intervened on our lawsuit on our behalf and essentially took the position that the city should approve our project.
Wow. How did you guys find this? Is this land or property? How did that process go?
Yeah, right. Great question. So, like I mentioned, I have two partners. So both of my partners are very senior level established industry professionals in the local sort of greater Los Angeles real estate market. So they are currently residents of La Cañada, which is its own jurisdiction, as I mentioned. I, funny enough, actually went to high school in La Cañada, grew up there. I no longer live there, mostly because I can't afford it, which is why we are developing our product type in this community. But one of my partners actually had this site in escrow about 10 years ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
He's sort of maintained this relationship over the years, and an opportunity came about to purchase the property, and we got it. What's currently on the property is it's an old Christian Science reading room. So it's about 1.25 acres. There's, maybe 10,000 square feet of improvements on it, but nothing significant or historical or worth salvaging over. It's riddled with asbestos. It doesn't have any running hot water, and it's, now currently vacant.
Right on. Now talk about the funding. Was this with private, institutional, bank? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. We just have friends and family capital, entirely private. We have about 15 investors, high net worth individuals who have each kind of contributed, varying various amounts, between like, say, at the lowest, 100K, all the way up to, about $1 million, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
So that's.
Do you go to networking events or meetups in Southern California to attract investors, or is it just word of mouth, or
So what I like to say is, the short answer is like, yes, absolutely. But I think another aspect of our partnership is, so what I like to say is I have one partner who's a land use attorney. My other partner raises all of our capital and I do everything else. So all of our investors are actually relationships from one of my partners, my capital raising kind of partner.
So I read a little about your bio. It sounds like you have a lot of underwriting experience. And how does that tie in? Is that your experience with this?
Kind of, and we are always kind of looking for new opportunities. So absolutely, we're always underwriting new deals. And, that's like, I would say that, I like to say that I'm kind of like, built financial models, and that's exclusively kind of been my focus for, the past like 10 years. But that's really what I primarily focused on for 7 to 8 years at AIG and working under Bruce Eichner too.
Right. What resources do you rely on to stay up to date on current development trends?
Sure. I think that, I mean, I'll just speak to, the local Los Angeles region. Urbanized, I think is the best specifically for, new development, kind of pulse on the market.
Yeah.
What's new and coming about. Of course, the Real Deal is an excellent resource as well. If you have access to CoStar, that's prime, as well. In terms of like market reports, they're all kind of great. My personal favorite is, I think CBRE is really sort of the gold standard when it comes to credible kind of data that you can easily access as, without having to pay for it. Um, and you think of like an interesting different approach that I also take to keeping a pulse on the local, hyper local, kind of like almost like micro market level for new development projects, or reading planning commission agendas. Planning commission agendas are really,
Oh,
they're something it really gives you a pulse on the market, not only of what projects are in the pipeline or, really in that pre-entitlement stage or being considered, but you can also really read and understand the reaction from commissioners and local appointed officials on how they feel about development and specific development projects in certain regions too. So that's sort of a different angle that I think is really valuable, especially to developers, because you really need to be on the front lines, understanding what the political landscape really looks like before you enter it.
is there much political difference between New York and California? I mean, both blue states, but can you talk about that on the development side?
Great
Well,
question, actually. I would say that there are a lot of similarities, but an interesting thing is it is far more difficult to develop in California than it is in New
oh
York.
wow, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, that surprised me as well. New York, for all of its, for all of its I don't know, political mess. I think that it's still the sort of the same, not mess, I should say, like I think like political, maybe just the general political landscape is very reflective. It's very similar to California, but I
Yeah.
think that NIMBYism is a little bit different in New York. Here, you really have that traditional single family homeowners who are kind of coming out and whatnot.
Uh,
The That NIMBYism takes a different approach, or takes a different kind of perspective, almost like on a case by case basis in New York, because of course, people are, the views being impacted is not going to be something that comes up in a public comment. Traffic really isn't either, but weird nuances, for example, that a building will cast a shadow over a neighboring, park or something like that,
yeah.
or like it's just a little bit of a different kind of opposition or reasons for opposition. That's, I think, like the main difference. The overall kind of process is, very, very similar. It's just about, jumping through loops, but they have similar structures and a similar kind of, the entitlements process overall is pretty much the same.
What are the common misconceptions about real estate development? What do you think about that?
The developers don't care about the communities that they develop in or that
Oh,
they're building in.
oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I would say that, you really have to have a passion for it. That will be the thing that carries you through on these nights where, you're at a city council meeting and people are screaming at you, they're crying at, the podium. I've had, threatening emails sent to me. We even had, we actually bought this site from another developer who kind of failed,
Yes.
and they were sent a dead rat in the mail. So
Oh,
when you're faced with all this kind of pushback and upset and these really raw emotions, that passion is really what's going to get you through. Money alone is not enough to do this job. It's just simply not.
you enjoy creating, you enjoy building.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that is a common thread amongst developers and, even in the broader kind of commercial real estate industry, the adage is really, well, you're in real estate because it's a tangible asset, right? It's almost a cliched or, a trite saying at this point. But there's absolutely a level of truth to that.
Yeah. So California isn't the friendliest place just to do
No.
business, rent control, political issues, and I mean, you've chosen two hardest states, New York and California, to develop it. I mean, why not just go to a friendlier Texas? They want people to come in. Like, why not just move there? Like, why LA and LA? Like, what was your draw?
Yeah. So the high barriers to entry, if that levels out the competition. So I think if you have the grit, the stamina, the passion, the skill set, the experience to really weather the storm, fight the uphill battle to really get something entitled and get something built, especially ground up opportunistic development opportunities, you stand to you stand to benefit greatly. So I think that is certainly a component of it. The other half is, as I kind of mentioned, passion is like really just as important as the financial aspect of it.
Yeah,
I'm really passionate about Los Angeles. I think this is the greatest city in the world. It's my
sure.
favorite. Of course, I'm very biased. I think that that is for many people sort of an unfathomable thought, but there's just so much that this community and this market really has to offer. And sometimes we kind of can't get out of our own way. And I care so much about this area and the people here that that doesn't dissuade me. I want to keep fighting. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter how hard it is. Like I will always, always, always keep fighting. So the hope is that, as real estate is a cyclical industry, that will ebb and flow. And hopefully it'll get easier at some point along the line here.
Well, Alex, what this La Cañada property, what is your guys' exit strategy for it? You guys as a whole long term, are you guys gonna build it up and sell? Like what's the strategy on this property?
Yeah, great question. So when we, I think it's always important when we look at development projects, always having more than one exit strategy
Sure, sure.
is tantamount. Like absolutely, especially I think when you're looking at raw land, which is what this deal is essentially. We are really considering kind of two. We've always been in this with two real strategies, and I think that stands to be the same. You know, we either will sell this entitled and really glean that accretive value on the land lift, or we will enter into a JV with a co-GP development structure, really with like another developer who can kind of and will contribute the land and experience and whatnot,
Yeah.
and really kind of build it ground up from there.
How,
But
how
I
many
think,
how many
yeah.
units? How many units are you guys?
So it's 80 units, which is
80?
kind of crazy to think that, the state of California has intervened on like kind of such a, mid-sized project. I feel like it's not big, but it's not small. But this isn't 500 units. You would kind of think that that would be the case because of how much this case has really blown up and taken up so much, kind of media attention. Um, but so it's 80 units, 20% are affordable. So 16 of the units are affordable, as I mentioned. We also have a commercial ancillary kind of component. So that's about 14,000 square feet.
Just retail?
So we have it. It's all this we originally submitted our plans
Yeah.
in 2020, if you can believe it, but we also had two different iterations of it. So we had office still kind of it's really just 7,500 square feet of office. It's really
Yeah.
just kind of like suburban office, if you will, there. But as markets shift as they have already, kind of already, and will probably continue to do so as we go forward, that may shift around a little bit. But yeah.
Did the council tell you they want mixed use in there, or did you guys just go there and say, "Hey, we want to put apartments here, 80 units," or did they say, "We also want mixed use"? Like, did they dictate anything to you guys?
Yeah, so actually our very first meetings, of course, were to meet individually with each of the council members. So to kind of get exactly what you're getting at is their feedback, what they really want. Honestly, I mentioned we had a prior proposal on this site. It still had that same commercial component, but it was about half the size and it was senior housing. So it was age restricted, 55 and older. But without any of the kind of services that come along with assisted living and memory care. So the reason for that is because we poured over government documents, like really the general plan, the specific plan that this property is located in, And I mean, every page there's mention of the need for senior housing.
Yeah.
So when we brought that idea and that concept to city council members, they thought it was great. They were like, this is amazing. The commercial component, that was sort of to kind of supplement some of the economic development aspects that the city was really looking for as well. They didn't explicitly ask for that, but the specific plan, the general plan, as I mentioned, really highlighted the need for those uses and the desire to have those uses, especially on, we're situated along the main commercial corridor within this community, and there's only one. It's a very small, kind of bedroom community town. So we felt the commercial component made sense to be conducive with the rest of what's on the commercial boulevard.
Sure. Except for, rats in your mail, what's the biggest obstacle that you've come across in development?
I have to say it is getting people to come around and to see your vision and to see your side of things, like the kind of convincing aspect is absolutely the largest obstacle, because really at the end of the day, in bigger picture, we all want the same thing. We all want the same team. We want our community to be better. We want to preserve what's is worth preserving, and we want to make sure that our community continues to be a desirable place for everyone to kind of exist and live in. But I think where that breaks down is people's different opinions of what that really looks like. But so I think having an understanding of that aspect is really a big obstacle, but really kind of tackling that. So I kind of think the best way is to use an example. If your city council and the community will have they have different competing kind of interests, and it's your job as the developer to kind of suss out what concerns they really have and quell those in the context of your development. So for example, our project in particular, I think, well, our project not in particular, but a common complaint, I think, for projects, especially in California, is that it's going to cause too much traffic, right? That was a common complaint that we addressed, that we faced as well. But how we kind of address that in community outreach and with city council is, look, like you're never seeing everyone leave an apartment building all at once, right? That just never happens. You'll see maybe one or two people leaving sort of at the same time. So just really kind of, and that really brought down, especially in city kind of closed door city council discussions, kind of de-escalates the situation. You cannot expect for the traffic complaint to ever go away, but you can reduce people's fears about things just by simply kind of providing them facts.
Oh, facts. All right. That's your strategy. Sometimes it's facts. I get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you, you've gone this far, you've done a lot, can you share a win that you're very proud of, a success story? I mean, this all sounds very successful already, but anything specific?
Yes, absolutely. So I mentioned that we had a prior proposal, on the site before we pursued the builder's remedy.
Yeah.
I would say during that, so we pursued the, this is back in, 2021 is really when we started the public hearings process, but this is pre-builder's remedy, so that was not even a concept or an idea that, they entered the foray yet. So we went the traditional development route. Our entitlements package was incredibly robust because, the city of La Cañada really has quite an onerous zoning code. So, we had a general plan amendment, a zone change, conditional use permit, you name it, every kind of discretionary entitlement that you can kind of think of. But when we went to the planning commission, we had three separate meetings, 13 hours of total review.
Oh.
But after those 13 hours of review, we got unanimous approval from planning commission. So, the planning commission experience, and I have to give so much credit to all the planning commissioners in the city of La Cañada, they were tough, but they were fair. And that was such an incredible win. I mean, ultimately we had to end up pivoting our entitlement strategy, but to this day, it is the furthest, it's the first housing project or even like mixed use project that has received planning commission approval in this jurisdiction and in this community in over 30 years.
Okay. Congratulations. Great hard work. 13 hours. Whew. Oh.
Yeah, it's a fun time. You come out of those and it's midnight and you're looking at your watch like, oh my gosh, wow.
Oof. Yeah. What about a failure? Can you share as a failure? Come on, those are the fun ones. Come on, give us something.
Honestly,
Give us something.
immediately, it's like, yeah, what happened like immediately thereafter, right? Next. So, we coming off this huge win of unanimous approval by the planning commission,
Oh.
going into city council, unanimous denial the other way. So that was
Well, you didn't find out what they all wanted. I mean, clearly the planning
right.
wants to build, but clearly each one of those
Yeah.
people, like you mentioned earlier, they all have their own intention of what they want. It's like you got to find that in each one. That I like to hear more about that. That's
ultimately ended up happening there, is that like the politics just became too large and just too much of a big behemoth to kind of, yeah, like it was almost sort of I don't know, systemic blood, not like a black swan event, but it was sort of an unforeseen risk, I think, that snuck up on us. We thought we'd addressed it earlier on, but this just like very, many other communities, the loudest community members are the ones that kind of get their needs, they get the most attention. City council will kind of defer to the loudest community members who, when it comes to development, tend to be against or opposed to whatever project is being considered. So that was the case with us.
great. Partnerships. Could you have done this without partnerships? Could you have done this by yourself? Can you talk about partnerships, how they helped you, or if you have had any, I don't know, nightmare problems from them? Like, partnerships are important to get farther. Can you go on and talk about your partners?
Yeah, this would not be possible. I don't think really any development project is possible without partners. If for my specific circumstance, it really does help to have kind of some gray hairs in the room, if you will, with a lot more experience than I have, and also longstanding decades long relationships with local community members and powers that be.
Do the partners live in? You said they live in La
Yes.
Cañada. Oh, so that's all.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Is La Cañada underdeveloped as of right now, or is it very conservative? They don't want any development. Like, can you touch that?
The latter. Yeah, the latter. Yeah. So if you ask anyone, who lives there, and even in their housing element, it says that, La Cañada is mostly built out. It really, but that's depends on who
Pretty
you ask,
open.
because, yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, oh, not compared to New York or really any other, even like, I don't know, denser parts of LA. There's a lot more, it's built out in the sense that, I mean, it's a reflection of its zoning code, right? It's the zoning, sure. Yeah. Under the current zoning code, it's built out, but that is not, that's not really the way to think about what is physically possible in terms of build out. So yeah, I mean, I personally think, I don't think it's really just, as I mentioned, it's a bedroom community. It really is kind of a suburb, or what I like to call an urban adjacent, an urban adjacent market or submarket community. So I don't think it really is ever going to be a big development hub or hotspot, but there are opportunities, I think, just in the general vicinity, in the sort of the general area. I think that's also just kind of true for development trends in general in Southern California. You're seeing this trend of moving further and further away from the city center. So, and I think we all kind of expect that to continue in the short run. But yeah.
Are you involved with any other real estate deals as like a limited partner, or you invest outside of this project? You got anything going on with that?
Looking to, yeah, certainly. Yeah, that is that's sort of one of my biggest, I think, goals like for this next year is really to look for other opportunities. So if anyone's listening,
Yeah.
reach
Hey,
out to me.
absolutely, absolutely. You're involved with the ULI, Urban Land Institution, Unity Public Speaking. Can you talk about that? It's kind of interesting. I kind of started to look into that and read about it. It's very fascinating.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you should certainly join us for anything. We're always looking for, new members and new participation. But yeah, I've been a member of ULI for a number of years now, but I really hadn't I didn't become exceptionally involved to kind of the level that I'm at currently until about call it maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. Um, I've held a number of leadership positions in both the Young Leaders Group in the local Los Angeles chapter, and as well as sort of what we like to call the Americas level. So that includes all markets in North America, so Canada and Mexico. So it's international, but North continental, I guess is the best way of putting it. So I currently hold a leadership, my current leadership chair roles are at this, Americas level. And I've been involved in that really since its inception. So the Young Leaders Group Americas group has been around, I was part of the first pledge class, if you will, of that group. And the reason for its kind of creation was really to give young leaders exposure to, at really what we like to call the Americas level, as I said, greater exposure across the markets, and really getting kind of different chapters to speak with one another and breaking down some of those silos and information barriers. But I will be transitioning into a new role for this next year, which is a fundraising role, which I'm very, very excited about. And that my main goal there is really to put together a fundraising campaign that will provide sponsorships and scholarships for more young leaders to kind of attend our big biannual conferences, and get them more involved and out in person, because these conferences are exceptionally expensive, and that's also excluding flights, hotels, incidentals, and whatnot. So
Data.
yeah, so I'm really excited to to be working on providing opportunities for people to join more and attend more.
Sure, sure. If you had to start all over again in life, in your career, maybe give me $100,000, how would you put that money to work?
Oh, and I'll interpret this, besides buying just NVIDIA stock, 10 years ago. Yeah, that's what I would do. But, specifically within the real estate context, I would have, spread that out as sparsely as I could have, either through syndication, bringing on partners, and dumping it really all into my two favorite asset classes, which are the most boring, but I don't care: industrial and multifamily. But actually, I'd probably say single family homes. Like 10 years ago, really, that was the way to do it. And that's so industrial around the Port of LA. Dump it in, buy up everything you can there. So, and if you got like a single family home, even like a portfolio, because cut to like 10 years ago, that there may have been those deals around still. But those two asset classes, I think, will continue to be the mainstays of development and the real estate industry, really, in Southern California.
Thank you for coming on, Alex. I really like what you're doing. And I'm sure you're going to inspire more people through your leadership programs and your fundraisers. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, this is great.
Thank you for listening. Please tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast. To stay in the loop of the next real estate opportunity, please email ppbarakov@hotmail.com. Have a great day. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment.